Welcome back to Careers and Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Laura. Okay, so we've all heard the stereotype of the finance bro, but what about the women building careers in that same industry and doing it all on their own terms? Today's guest, Urmi Hossain, is one of them. She works in finance and she's building a career in one of the most competitive fields out there. At the same time, she's an author, speaker, fellow podcast host, and mentor focused on helping women step into leadership, financial independence, and a stronger sense of self. With Italian and Bengali roots, Ormi grew up between cultures, navigating questions of identity and belonging from a really early age. Instead of pushing those questions aside, she leaned into them. She wrote a book about her experiences. She launched a podcast that really explores stories of migration and identity. And now she helps lead a community dedicated to supporting women in leadership. One thing I really admire about Ormi's journey is that she didn't wait for the perfect moment to start this work. She built it alongside a demanding career, using her time outside the office to create impact, build community, and open the door to more honest conversations about what it means to define success for yourself. Today, we're talking about building confidence in spaces where you might feel like an outsider, navigating big pivots without burning everything down, and how small intentional choices can really reshape the direction of your life over time. Let's get into it. Ormi, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I know it is morning where you are, like it is where I am. Do you have your coffee ready for today?
I don't have it next to me right now because I'm fasting, but I did have my coffee at 5 a.m. before the
Okay.
sunrise.
Okay. Well, that's good that you are prepared. How do you normally drink your coffee? I'm a latte girly myself.
Yeah, me too. I do like my lattes or I do like my cappuccinos, and I do have like a quite fancy and professional machine.
Ooh,
And so I
yeah.
make it like the way they make it at the coffee shop, and I try to make my latte art. That's something that I'm like working on,
Oh,
but I make,
fun.
yeah, I make it that way.
I love that. I love that. I do have the fancy machine, but I have not mastered the latte art yet, so I'll need to take some
Okay.
tips from you. So I always like to start by going like way back before your career ever began, right? When you think back to when you were a child, was there anything in particular that you wanted to be when you grew up?
I would say yes. Like every single person, we always have, that dream job or we have in mind, this is what we want to be. I think when I was a kid, and even especially when I was in high school, when people would ask me like, where do you want to be? I don't think I had a proper answer. But when I was, let's say 17, I was telling people, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna become a therapist. And I told myself, yeah, I'm gonna solve people's problems. Like you see it in the movies, you're holding the notepad or, a notebook and a
Hmm.
pen and taking notes of what people are saying, and then you have the person laying down on the sofa. And I thought that, I'm gonna be a good therapist because I was like, I'm good at like solving problems. But then I changed completely my mind. I don't even know why I thought about that career path because I did nothing that was related to that. I just went with my own guts of like, oh, I think I'm good at solving problems.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought eventually also to become a tourist guide. But then guess what? Things have changed and now I'm in finance.
That's a really interesting shift. But maybe
Yes.
there's something in there though, like the therapist part of you wanting to solve problems and, I don't know, maybe there's something to that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I would say I think I always enjoyed, the connection with people and talking
Mm,
to people. And I feel like I'm pretty good when it comes to listening to people
yeah.
in general, which is also why I think people confide to me. They just tell me all of their stuff. And so I feel like, one thing about being a therapist is that you have to be trustworthy. And I feel
Hmm.
like I am that kind of person.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in finance, there is also that aspect where you have to listen to people because you're
Yeah.
dealing with clients and they have their own issues, their own problems, but it's more like broad and related to financial stuff.
Hmm.
So I guess, that's how I was able to pivot myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those qualities that are kind of inherently part of you that just kind of shape what you what path you decide to take, right?
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that you've spoken about is navigating life between different cultures, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so I'm born and raised in Italy, and both of my parents are from Bangladesh. And so when I was a little kid, like I grew up in Italy, and for a big chunk of my life, I really had to navigate between two different identities, two different
Hmm.
cultures, two different worlds. One is the Bengali one, and the other one is the Italian one. And they were quite different. They're quite different, but they're also very similar in for
Yeah.
certain things. And I was always like jumping around from one culture to another, trying to fit in, but realizing that I'm not fitting in.
Mm.
And so when I went to school, for instance, like all of my friends were Italian. I did not have anyone that looked like me. There were not there were not that many immigrant kids back in the days. And then I always felt like I was misplaced. Like I felt like I did not belong there because I did not have anyone that looked like me.
Hmm.
But deep inside, deep inside, I felt like I was like them, even though from, aesthetically, I did not look like everyone
Hmm.
else. And then when I went back home, it was another struggle, meaning that I looked like everyone else, but inside I did not feel like everyone else. So that was quite of a struggle. And I
Yeah.
never really spoken about this anywhere because I was like, maybe it's just me, going through this is probably not normal. But when I started to speak about it, I realized that there are a lot more people like me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
When you think about how that shaped your sense of identity now, how do you think you kind of found your place, so to speak?
I think it's when I came to realize that, even navigating in between two cultures wasn't really my weakness.
Mm.
I just had to be aware that this was my strength and part
Yeah.
of my storytelling. And it took me a while because like everyone else, I wanted to belong to something and I wanted to be labeled to one thing only. Like
Hmm.
especially when you go in like a simple example, when you go and fill out like a form, they ask you your
Yes.
nationality.
Yeah.
I really struggled because I was like, okay, am I putting what I am like from a legal point of view or am I putting what I'm feeling? So like those things, they look quite, it seems silly, but they make you reflect. And that's when I
Hmm.
started to reflect about it. And I want it to be just one thing.
Hmm.
But when I started to talk about this more and more, and I started to open up myself to trusted people, I realized that there are a lot more kids like me, a lot more people like me were called
Yeah.
like third culture kids. And I started to see this as like my strengths because not only I'm able to, bring multiple perspectives, but it makes me more adaptable to different environments. I'm able to make friends with people that come from different cultures. It makes me a
Hmm.
lot more open-minded. I have multiple visions of the world, like it's not just one vision. So I started to realize that my perspective was equally important as to someone who had only one culture to begin with.
Yeah, I love that so much. So, as you were navigating all of this personally, right, you were also discovering your professional direction. That's what I want to get into next. So, finance. It sounds like it wasn't a slow burn for you. I think I read you called it love at first class. What sparked that for you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was really love at first class, love at first sight, however you want to describe
Yeah.
it. And it's an unconditional love that never ended, and I don't think it's ever gonna end. Um, so first of all, I never came across finance when I was a kid. I did not take any finance class. There was no way that I was in contact with finance when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Canada, I had international business as my major, and finance was actually my minor. But I
Okay.
decided to make a switch after I took a finance course. I realized that this is it. I knew it. I was so 100% convinced that this was my thing to do, and I made it my major. So I did major in finance, and for me, it was effortless. Like
Mm.
going to classes, taking exams, listening to my professors. Like it was just a very enjoyable experience for me
Yeah.
that I would like repeat over and over again. And even when I graduated, like it was quite difficult for me because I was like, oh, here it comes, I'm done learning finance, but I continued, I pursued other designation. I finally landed a job in finance and I'm happy, of how
Hmm.
far I've come because I feel like I found my calling, and I feel like a lot of people are not lucky to use their degree.
Hmm.
when they're working. Some of people say, oh, I have spent 3 years of my university and I'm not even using this degree, but I'm lucky enough to say that I'm using it.
Yeah,
And I feel like as a woman in finance, it is quite an accomplishment because it's such male-dominated industry and we don't see a lot of representation, we don't see a lot of diversity. So I'm here to stay.
absolutely. And there's a lot to be said for finding your passion. I mean, I know people 10, I'm mid-career, right? And I know people 10 years older than me who are like still trying to figure it out. So there's a
Yeah.
lot to be said for that. You're very fortunate in that sense. But I'm sure starting out, it was probably a bit tricky. I'll say that, right? Like navigating those early years as a young professional in the industry. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I would say that when you're starting, you pretty much have no clue about what your career path will be. Like, I think you
Yeah.
have an idea of the end goal, but you do not know that there are other things, before you reach the end goal, the things that you have to, overcome, different hurdles, different challenges.
Hmm.
I think my most difficult one was with rejections, which I think it's pretty common, especially when you're starting out. And honestly, did this terrible mistake of never like networking with people, never working on building a brand, never working on building, my personal brand, having a LinkedIn profile. Like I felt like for me, I felt like I was not good enough to put myself out there. That's how I used to think of
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. It took me a while to be comfortable and to tell myself that I have things to offer to people. That was one mistake that I did is that I never really took time in university to really network with people.
Hmm.
And when I started to work, I also did the same mistake. I was not networking with people, not connecting with people. I was just like, you know what? Eventually someone will hire me. That's what I was telling myself. And then I think it was only when I started to work that I was able to find my path and get a lot more clarity. But there was a lot of self-investment that I have done. Like there was a lot of learning, a lot of growth. I really started to invest more in, finding mentors, speaking with mentors, especially at work where they had like mentorship program. I would really like enroll on those programs and like talk to people and understand, a bit from their experience. I think my first professional like mentor was a man,
Hmm.
and I would like open up to him and tell him things, and then from there I feel like I got a lot more clarity about what I wanted to do, and I think now I've learned my lessons. And I think for people listening, like if you are starting out, like make sure that you keep learning. Like learning does not end in a classroom, it continues also in a boardroom. That's how I like to say, from classroom to boardroom. It's important to invest in yourself even when you are working and to have a mindset of being a lifelong learner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the learning and the relationship building, there's so much that growth that can happen from that. What was it that pushed you? Because you said you weren't really networking. What was it that pushed you to kind of invest in those like mentorship programs?
I think it was curiosity.
Yeah.
It was a lot of curiosity because at work, especially when I was working for my second company, they did have this mentorship program, and I was quite intrigued when I saw it. And
Hmm.
I saw the profiles of people who were being mentors, and I was like, you know what? Let me just try it and see what it might be, what might be the outcome. And I was like, I'm not losing anything. I'm probably gonna get a lot from it, and it was quite beneficial. And then I also had, I would say, not from a professional point of view, like not with the mentorship program, but some of my managers, I really look up to them, and they were female managers. I feel like I was able to like really open up
Yeah.
myself to them and tell them this is what I want to do, and they really have invested in my growth, and they really believed in me, so that really helped as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Between having your mentors right early on and then connecting with some of those female managers or supervisors, people that you worked with, do you feel like that really helped with your sense of belonging? Because you mentioned being a woman in a male-dominated field, that can be tough. How did those connections help with your sense of belonging?
They did help with my sense of belonging, but I think I had to find that sense of belonging myself first,
Mm,
within myself, for myself,
yeah.
because I think for me, it was more about accepting my cultural identity and understanding like where do I stand. But that took a while, if I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the mentorship programs or all the mentors that I had, they helped more with my self-confidence and more with my self-belief and trusting myself that I can do it, that I should like really go forward with that, with the things that I wanted to do. And a lot of the times you just need someone to cheer for you. That's
Yeah.
all you need. Like it's not even you not being able to do that. You're probably able to do that. It's just you need that push from someone that says, okay, you can do this.
Yeah.
And I think my sense of belonging came way after, but definitely I would say that speaking about it with people and like accepting myself or embracing my identity was what helped me with my own self-belonging.
Yeah. It's like you need you can be encouraged by those leaders and people building you up, but ultimately it comes down to self-acceptance.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So you achieved what I think a lot of people would consider like the goal, right? Elite credentials, portfolio management, some sense of stability, right? Did success feel the way that you expected that it would?
So first of all, I don't feel like I have reached the goal. I feel like there's a lot more that I want to reach. And
Sure.
I think for success, it's interesting that you're mentioning that because I think there is success that it's just defined by all the credentials and all the achievement, but then there is also success that the way I like to define it, it's more about how you are able to make an impact, you know. So for
Mm,
me, like I feel like there was a shift in the way I started to see that success. I feel like I had to achieve those things like my credentials, my job, and blah 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 to get to be able to give back and
hmm
make an impact in the community. And so it went from being achievement driven to being outcome driven.
mm,
And as much as we like to think, you know, sometimes success is more about reputation, you know, it's more about which company you're working for or the role that you have and all the credentials. Like, I'm not discrediting those things. I think they are equally important and they are very important for
sure.
me too because it's what makes me happy. But I feel like for me, success started to be more like, how can I make an impact in the
hmm
community that I'm serving? And so this is why I do a lot of things outside of my 9 to 5, which is related to, you know, women in leadership, gender
hmm
equality, female mentorship, because I feel like I'm able to change someone's life. So for me, it shifted. I feel like sometimes success is more defined by external factors or
Sure.
external validation. But I think as you reach a certain age and you have probably a more stable career, you start to like reflect a bit on what is it that truly makes me happy. And that's when I started to reflect on how I want to be remember and what success means for me.
Yeah, it's like you need those credentials. You need that credibility, right? And then once you
That's
have
it.
that, I love that you're finding ways now to give back. Was there a particular moment or something that kind of realized that there was something that was missing, the giving back?
Yes. I think it's when I started to work and I realized that my life was quite flat and it was
Mm,
very mundane. You know, you're just working and you know you're just doing what we call the
the rat
rat race
race.
or the rat
Yes.
race. There you go.
Yes.
Where you know you're just you wake up, you go to work, come back home, watch TV, eat, and
Mhm.
then repeat all over again. And that's when I started to realize there was a sense of void. And I was like, okay, I need to do something about it. So I started to look into things where I could work on myself. Like I started to join Toastmasters and
Oh
work on my
yeah.
public speaking skills. I started to look into volunteering activities. So I was like volunteering in a hospital, for instance. I was like volunteering for a children's hospital.
hmm
And then I started to like think more about, okay, what is it that I truly want to do? And that's where the whole women's empowerment element came into place. And that's where I'm like focusing on. Right now, it's more, I feel like I have a target right now, which is giving back to women and helping women. And that's something that I want to continue on a long term. But it was in that moment that I was like, okay, I have to do something to my life
hmm
that it's giving me a sense of purpose and fulfillment.
I like the way that you put it. You have your 9 to 5, right? And then you have your 5 to 9.
Yes, which is which is a lot shorter though, if I have to say the truth. Yeah.
Not quite
Yeah.
a 5 to 9.
No, it's more like a 6 to 10 or 7 to 10.
You got to do whatever works. And I'm sure some days it varies, right? Some days it could be a
Yes.
5 to 9, and then you just have to be flexible with that, right?
Yes. Yes.
What was it that pushed you? You mentioned giving back, right? There's that aspect, but you've been doing a lot of writing. You mentioned some mentoring, you're speaking publicly, you're doing this podcast. What pushed you to start expressing yourself in that way?
I think I just wanted to share my story,
Hmm.
and I started to realize that like my story was worth telling, and I had to also like get out of my comfort zone. Like writing for me was not something that I was comfortable with because I was second guessing myself and be like, I don't know if I'm good at writing. But I had a goal in mind, which was to write a book. And
Yeah.
then being on a podcast or doing podcast appearances was also something that I was not comfortable with. Also having my own podcast or even being on a YouTube channel, at someone's YouTube channel, were things that were not comfortable. I was not
Hmm.
comfortable with, but I had the drive.
Hmm.
I had the drive, and I was like, okay, I wanna see what that might lead to. And I'm happy that I did that because I feel like I very much enjoy doing every single thing that I have done, being on a podcast, talking to people, connecting with people, doing mentorship. Like I
Hmm.
feel like talking to people and connecting with people just empowered me indirectly without even realizing it.
Yeah, there's a really
So,
interesting thing that it connects to that you said earlier, which was like realizing that, that LinkedIn presence. I cringe sometimes when I'm on LinkedIn myself, but it's like it's necessary when it comes to building your brand. But there's this element of it, like the self-acceptance, the believing that you're worthy, that you have a story to tell that really comes into play.
yeah, and I feel like, when you're telling a story, there is a human aspect to it. Like
Hmm.
it's just you telling your own story in the most imperfect way possible, but then people
Yeah,
can connect with it because you are being your natural, your most self, and you are being vulnerable, and people like that. So I was like, you know what? Like I prefer being that kind of person. So I feel like telling my story and doing some of these things, it just helps me to be my most human self.
absolutely. Yeah, it can be really scary too to put yourself out there. When you think
Yes.
about balancing, yes, when you think about balancing that piece of you, right? Like your public image, your brand, with your professional career, how did you find that balance as you started to share more openly, to be more vulnerable?
I really had to find things that I was like comfortable with
Mhm.
doing, but also being able to like not overdo.
Mm.
Because I feel like, when it comes to balance or understanding like what you want to tell people, like I think it requires a lot of work. And I feel like for me, when I think about balance, is more like from a time management point of view.
Mhm.
Because, like working full time somewhere, it really takes 50% of your time, but also being aware with what's aligned with you. Like there are
Yeah,
certain places that maybe you don't want to share your story because you don't feel you're aligned with it. So being also selective in that sense, but without overdoing. So that's how I was like choosing where I wanted to appear, choosing where I wanted to speak, and seeing is this benefiting me. So it also comes with a whole question about boundaries, I would say,
hmm,
like finding what's right for you, finding if something is serving your purpose or serving your needs. That's how I was able to be selective and find things that were like fulfilling me, but also aligned with the things that I do.
yeah. I mean, there are only so many hours in a day, right? And it takes a lot of, it's not actually doing, there's a lot of self-reflection that comes with
Yeah.
that, right?
Yes. Yes. A lot of self-reflection. And I feel like the more opportunities you're given, whether they're good or bad, I feel like you start to realize, okay, if I'm given that many opportunities, but I only have limited amount of hours to do them, which one would I like to prioritize? So I feel
Yeah,
like as you're saying no, you get a lot more clarity towards your yeses.
absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. When you think about the women that you mentor today, so you're doing a lot of mentoring with your 5 to 9, 7 to 10, 6 to 8. What what do you hear most often? What struggles or challenges do you hear most from the women that you mentor today?
Honestly, there's a lot of like a lack of self-belief and lack
Mm.
of self-trust, which I think it goes back to the whole like imposter syndrome. We
Oh
just feel
yeah.
like we're not good enough, unfortunately. And I think I'm also a victim of it too without even realizing it. And so there is like I have to do a lot of those conversations where I'm like, no, you can do this. You're good. Go for it. You can do this. You have all the necessarily like skills and competencies to do something, but it's really instilling that confidence in the woman that I mentored, which has been quite a struggle, I would say.
Yeah.
It's really a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. For so many of us, I mean, I'll say this, I'm reassured as a woman with constant imposter syndrome when I hear a man admit to having it too. I'm like, wait, we all have imposters? We're all walking around faking it? Really?
Yes, and I do know that it's not just a woman thing, it's also men, but I feel like
Yeah.
they're just so good at like hiding it.
Yeah,
So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do the same thing too. I will just hide it.
exactly. What would they do?
Exactly.
You said that you feel like you've become the mentor that you never had. What
Yeah.
did you need back then, that didn't exist for you?
Someone that looked like me.
Yeah.
That's what I needed. Yeah. I really had to rely sometimes to a lot of my friends, and they're all Italian. They don't share my same background of, being Bengali Italian, for instance.
Hmm.
So a lot of the times I really had to like explain myself to them, but not because it was their fault. It's just that these were the circumstances back in the
Hmm.
days. So it was a learning process for them too to get to know someone who's completely different from them. And I did not have anyone that was much older than me. I did not have anyone that was my same age who shared my same cultural background. So I really struggled in telling my story of why I couldn't do certain things, for instance, or why I needed certain guidance from someone who shared my cultural identity, because we just go through certain things that other people do not go through.
Sure.
So I wish there was someone that looked like me in terms of like my cultures.
I think it just goes to show representation matters so much. And it's really a testament to what you're doing, and being that for someone else or for many others, really. So
Yes.
thank you for that. When you think of financial independence, especially when it comes to empowering and mentoring women, why is that so powerful?
It's powerful because it's all about potentials and opportunities and freedom that women can have. I think, every single human being needs the the right financial education. Unfortunately, I feel like I still see that we're always lean towards educating men when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes to finance. The topic itself is not even spoken at home, and
Mhm.
women are not given the same, type of financial literacy. But when you think about financial independence, I think it's important no matter the gender, no matter, your relationship status, because it gives you the chance to really have the freedom and do the things that you really want.
Hmm.
And so I've seen how it is in, let's say, in South Asian communities, how women are not really thought about finance, but then they really struggle. Let's say they depend so much on their brothers, fathers,
Hmm.
husbands that,
Yeah.
if they're given, if there's something bad that happens, let's say your husband passes away and you depend so much on your husband, you do not know where the bank account is, you do not know the PIN of the bank, your bank card. There are things that, and you probably have to, survive yourself. Maybe you have to take care of your kids. Like these things are like, we should not take them for granted.
Hmm.
We should not. And
Yeah.
so that's why I feel like this is why it's important, because it just gives you the power to really like do things, have that freedom and also opportunities, or even in times of like uncertainty, you never know that. You should never rely on someone. You should always like no matter what your relationship status is, you should always like build that financial knowledge.
Yeah, it's so interesting because that is the case, financial independence of women on men, in so many different, it crosses cultures, it crosses classes, even in affluent communities. I'll make a confession here. I'm a big fan of reality TV, and I see so many of these affluent women, their stories where there is a loss, whether it's, a divorce or someone passing away, like you mentioned, and they have no idea what the financial status is or how to get into accounts, how to access accounts. And it really is so important that you have that, that financial independence. And so that's incredible that you're pushing more women
Yeah, it's
to
important.
to be educated in that way. Yeah. You also have written about, I love this, deciding to fully live. What did that decision actually mean, and what did it change for you in your day-to-day life?
So I think this question very much relates to some of the things that we've spoken about. And to me, really, to fully live means doing the things that we really enjoy
Yeah.
and going for things that we never thought of.
Hmm.
And to see our life as a way to like always make it fun by doing different things, like diverse things. So for instance, like I'm gonna give you an example as we were speaking about coffee. Like I took a latte art workshop, for
Oh,
instance, and
cool.
yeah, I was always curious about it. I also took an espresso making class to
Oh,
understand, the art behind an espresso and how much water you need, or the
yeah.
type of water, things like that. Like these things are like you don't do them in your 9 to 5, right?
Hmm.
You do them if you're curious about them, if you have an interest. And so I'm always looking for things where I can do something that is like fun and, get engaged with other people and doing something that is unusual, that I would do outside of my routine. So for instance, another thing that I did was a soap making. It wasn't a soap making, it was a bubble bath making work, like a class where you would actually make bubble bath.
Uh-huh.
Or I also took like let's say a cocktail like workshop. Like I like to do those things because they really
Yeah.
make my life much much richer,
Hmm.
much more fulfilling. And these are things that you don't do on a regular basis. So I used to depend on other people to do those things, but I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? Not everyone says yes to things that I say, so I'm just gonna go on my own and live my life fully. So
I love that. I don't know about you. When I was younger, I used to think, well, why would I do that? Why would I need to know that? Or what would I do with that? I'm not going to be a bartender. Why would I take a cocktail making class? I'm not going to be an actor. Why would I take, an acting class? But I think there's something about, and it's like chasing that curiosity. I like that you said
yeah.
you like get curious about things, and just have fun.
Yeah, and exactly. Get curious and don't just stay in in your box, inside your
Yeah.
box, inside your bubble. It's fun to experiment things. Like you said, you're not gonna become a barista or whatever, but it's
Right.
fun to do it. It just shows the kind of person that you are, that it's more like, I like to do uncomfortable things, or I like to do new things, or I like to live my life as if it was an adventure. And that's how I like to think of my life. It's more like an adventure. So I'm very curious about different things and I just go and try them.
I love that so much. I'm actually, as we speak, I'm trying to get one of my previous podcast guests who's local to me to go to an improv class. Not because I think I want to do anything with it. I just think it would be really fun. So I'll
Yes.
let you know how that goes.
Nice. So much fun.
What do you feel like, on the same token, right? What do you feel like you had to let go of to live more authentically?
I would say to leave based on people's expectations.
Mm.
Yes. I like I've learned I listen to different podcasts
Mhm.
where they talk about how we often leave to perform a role that is given to us, such as maybe, a daughter, a sister, a wife, or so and forth. But sometimes we are doing this to make someone happy
Mm.
rather than making ourselves happy, and we find ourselves, pleasing people, just doing what is expected, but that comes at a cost, which is, I feel like it's the evolution of your identity. like the evolution of you living authentically. And so for me, it was important that no matter where I was, no matter what role I was taking,
Hmm.
that I was always myself across all the different roles, that I should not be shrinking myself to something, that I should not be adapting myself to something, but I always want to be my truest self all the time,
Yeah.
everywhere that I go. And that's what I try to do. And I feel like for me, it's like I feel like when I'm trying to be or someone that I'm not, it just shows. It just
Mm.
shows that I'm like, I'm not being myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't lie to myself. I should also be honest to myself about the person that I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. For someone who's listening then right now, that's kind of stuck between expectations, whether they're their own or those kind of thrust upon them and their own voice, their internal thoughts and feelings and who they are. What's one step that they can take to live more authentically themselves?
I think to do a lot of self-reflection
Hmm.
and to see like what truly is important for them. And I think there are so many like ways they can do that. Like there's so many like guided journals that can really help you with like self-reflection and
Hmm.
get you a little bit of clarity. I would say that's the very first step to really, finding yourself, finding your voice, living more authentically and asking yourself like, why do I do certain things? Why do I not do certain things? And also to ask yourself like, how would how would you feel if you were living without expectations?
Hmm.
Asking yourself those questions can really help you.
Yeah, I love that. When you look back at your career, at your younger self, what would you tell yourself about being a woman, specifically a woman in finance, or just about belonging in general?
I would definitely tell her that I deserve to be where I am right now and that I have created that space for myself. Like we just belong to be in the places where we are right now. They wasn't
Yeah,
just luck, it's because of our hard work.
absolutely. I love that. What are you working on building next? What's next for you?
So I'm part of an organization called Women in Leadership, and we just launched our chapter last week. We are a
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we are a team of four incredible women, and we did an event for International Women's Day. So we like got together, we brought speakers, panelists, and we had a networking session. And like right now, the work is really to build that community in Montreal because the organization itself is based across Canada, but Montreal did not have a chapter for a while. I think it was like we did not have enough people.
Mm,
So now we saw the turnout, we saw how successful it was. So we're like, we
yeah.
want to continue this conversation. We want to have, more events. So our goal is to really build that community by having a lot of like in-person events where women can connect with each other. And honestly, let me tell you this, the vibe in the room is different when there are a lot of women like all
Yeah.
together. Yes.
Yeah. Is it just in-person events? Do you ever do virtual or remote?
We do a lot of virtual events as well. We just had a
Hmm.
webinar like last
Okay.
night or 2 nights ago. It's more
Okay.
across Canada, so anyone can join and listen
Okay.
to like the webinars, and everything is all around leadership topics.
That's amazing. And where can people go to learn more about this organization or your work?
So people can go to Women in Leadership Foundation. They can just Google that and find out what we do. They can know what we do at the national level, and then they can find out about the different chapters. So you can find a local chapter that it's pertinent to you. And if people want to connect with me, I have my LinkedIn profile called Urmi Hossain. I have my YouTube channel called Urmi Hossain, and I also have a podcast called Stories Beyond Borders, which is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And we will share all of those links here. You also have a book.
I also have a book called Discovering Your Identity, a Rebirth from Interracial Struggle, and it's available on Amazon.
Amazing. And we will link that in our book club. Ormi, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this and hear your story. I think, like we talked about, representation really matters. And I think your story is going to inspire a lot of other people. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Careers and Coffee Talk. Big thanks to today's guests for pouring out so many great insights. And hey, thanks to you for hanging out with us. If this episode gave you a little jolt of inspiration or made your day a bit more brewed and balanced, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Got a minute? Drop me a 5-star review. It's basically the podcast equivalent of buying me a fancy oat milk latte. Quick disclaimer though, the views expressed in this episode are personal and do not reflect those of any organization. Anyway, until next time, stay curious, stay caffeinated, and keep chasing the career that makes you feel the most alive. Catch you next time.